Sukham tvidanim trividham shunu me bharatarshabha abhyasat ramate yatra dukkantam cha nigacchati yattadagre vishamiva pariname amrutopamam tat sukham satvikam proktam atma buddhi prasadajam tat sukham satvikam proktam atma buddhi prasadajam. Sukham, happiness. It's a very important topic. We are all seeking only one thing, happiness. Krishna, in the context of analyzing actions, he presents the various components of actions. The various components of actions being jnana, karma, karta. And then he also discusses two important factors beyond these three components, buddhi and dhriti, and eventually reaches to the most important part of performing any action, which is the outcome of the action. The outcome of action being sukha. We all know that the Gita primarily is to address that one single question, that central question that Arjuna raises. What is the right thing to do, hey Krishna? Karpanya dosho upakata svabhavaha pachami tvam dharma sammuda cheta yashreyasyan nichitam ruhitam me shishyasteham shadiman tvam prapannam. I surrender unto you, hey Krishna. Please do let me know, instruct, give me instructions as to what is the right thing to do. This is the central theme of the Gita. And this also has to happen to be the central theme of our life and living. What is the right thing to do? We need to keep constantly asking ourselves, day in and day out, what is the right thing to do? What is right action? And when Arjuna asks this question, or anyone asks this question as to what is the right thing to do, what does it imply? It basically implies asking, what is the goal of the action that I should perform? Whenever I ask the question, what is the right thing to do, obviously it implies, what is the goal of the action? Why do we need a goal? Because ultimately, anything that we do is linked to a goal. And if we examine our goal, every goal, any goal, underlying every and any goal, the object is always happiness. So we can always do this exercise. What do we want? Why do we want? What do we want? We have a long list. Against everything in this list of what do we want, let's start writing why do we want. Why do we want? What do we want? And this why should not stop. We need to keep drilling down to find out what is at the root of this why. Eventually we will reach to the answer, happiness. Because underlying every action is happiness. That is what we want to experience by performing the action. And therefore, Krishna addresses the question of what is the right thing to do at various levels throughout the Gita. Throughout the Gita, Krishna's exposition is around this question, what is the right thing to do? And in that process, Krishna very clearly says, The essence of right activity is founded in right identity. And right action is all about engaging in the world, with the world, without getting entangled. Engaging, to engage in the world, to engage with the world without getting entangled. In a way, this is the essence of right way of life and living. We have to engage in the world, we have to engage with the world, whether we like it or not. But the secret to succeed is to engage without getting entangled. And for this, we need to have a holistic perspective to three questions which we have seen through the answers throughout the Gita. The three questions being, where are we, who are we, and whose are we? Where are we? As Jivatmas, we live, we operate in this world of matter. We need to know that we are operating in the material world. While our destination is the spiritual world, we are operating in the material world where everything is subject to change. Nothing is permanent. This world is subject to the law of dualities, law of fragility, law of impermanence. Therefore, every resource that we have in this world is only temporary. While our goal is to reach the eternal, the means, the resources that we have are only temporary. So which means we need to know the art and science of using temporary resources to attain the eternal. Now, who are we? Obviously, as Atman, as the Jiva Atma, happiness, sukha, is my natural state. Now, when we understand our true nature, we realize that Atma is Anandamaya. Ananda, happiness, is natural to the Atma. If happiness is natural to us, then why are we seeking it? We will only seek something which we don't have. When we are supposed to be happy by nature, then there is something wrong with us if we are seeking. If we are seeking something that we already have. So the question that we need to ask when we examine the answer to the question, who are we, is, if we are by nature blissful, by nature happy, why do we seek? We seek happiness only because of the misalignment within us. The misalignment. As a human being, if you look at the entire stack, our indriyas, our deha, our manas, our buddhi, our prana, our dhriti, all of that have to be aligned with the Atman, which then needs to be aligned with the Paramatma. As long as there is misalignment, we cannot experience our own nature, our own happiness. Now imagine I need to sit here and talk to you for 1 hour. Now I need to necessarily be properly aligned to the law of gravity. Only then I can be comfortable in addressing you all. If I am not aligned with the law of gravity, if I am misaligned to the law, and if I am at a different angle, I cannot continue performing the action that I am supposed to do for long. I will naturally experience discomfort. The reason why we are always in a state of discomfort throughout our lives is because of this misalignment. Misalignment with our own nature, misalignment with the laws of the lawmaker, and misalignment with the lawmaker himself. So that is the reason why it is not only enough to know the answer to who we are in order to understand our nature, which is sukha, happiness. We also need to extend the question to whose we are. Because ultimately, if we reflect and examine our own deepest longing, the deepest longing that we have within ourselves, which is very natural to us, is the longing to belong. This is our deepest desire. When we examine our desire, because that is the reason why we all want to be accepted. We all want to be valued. We all want to be loved. It is very difficult for us if we find ourselves not accepted in a group. Very difficult for us if we are not loved by people around. We long to be loved, which is very natural to us. But this longing to belong can only be fulfilled when it is directed towards Krishna. Unfortunately, this longing to belong is always directed towards the world. We are looking at the world and we want this longing to be accepted, to be loved, to be valued all the time, to be fulfilled, which is not going to happen. The same world which will love us one day will hate us the next day. Unpredictable. The same world which will accept one day will not accept the next day. So therefore, the answer to the question who we are and whose we are becomes so very important in terms of understanding the secret to right activity leading to happiness. So as long as the action is founded in the longing to belong to Krishna, then we are aligned with our own nature. We experience the happiness which is natural to us. Then we do not need to seek happiness. We experience happiness which is ours forever. Therefore, Krishna clearly talks about the importance of realizing sukha which is not chased. We do not need to chase it. We need to experience it. By chasing the world, we are actually wasting our energy and we find no opportunity to experience sukha. Sukha, Krishna is going to talk about 3 types of sukha, and in order to understand the 3 types of sukha, we also need to understand how the actions that we do are based on our own choices. Because when we look at jnana, karma, karta, all getting involved in any action essentially is choice making and execution of a choice leading to an outcome. And when we talk about choices, the Shastras talk about only 2 choices that are presented to us all the time. When we look at our life, we run our lives based on choices. And all the choices that we make, conscious, unconscious, can be categorized into 2. Only 2 categories. Shreyas cha Preyas cha manushyametah tau samparitya vivinatti dhirah. Shreyo hi dhiro bhi preyaso vrinite preyo mando yogakshemad vrinite. A glorious conversation between Nachiketa and Yama in Kathopanishad. This is one of those inspiring Upanishads. Little Nachiketa having conversation with Yama, where it is very clearly said, we are always presented with only 2 choices, Shreyas and Preyas. The wise choose Shreyas over Preyas. Dhiraha, the wise. And those who are not wise, the unintelligent, the manda buddhi, very, very, very strong words used, always choose Preyas over Shreyas. Preyas is all about short-term wants. It is fulfilling the wants of the senses, sense gratification, taking the easy path of succumbing to our own senses, which seems to be pleasant. Preyas is what is seemingly pleasant. Shreyas is what is good, the ultimate good. What is seemingly pleasant will not lead us on the path of good. What is good may seem difficult, not easy to begin with, but eventually will lead us on the right path to goodness. One of my all-time favorite stories is the story of the monkey trap. I keep repeating this n number of times on various occasions, but every time we look at this story of monkey trap, it's so very simple, but at the very so very profound, the message. There was this monkey which was hungry. A hungry monkey walks inside the room searching for food, and then there is wafting aroma of chakra pongal coming in. And it so happens that this pot of chakra pongal, sweet rice, is not in that room, is an adjacent room, but there is a small hole in the wall. And it so happens that this bowl of sweet rice is just next to the hole. And through the hole is the aroma coming in. Obviously, the monkey gets drawn and it could see through the hole there's a pot of sweet rice. The hungry, it gets into action, the monkey, and then bungs in its arm. And the hole is good enough for its arm to go in. It goes inside, grabs the pot and grabs a fistful of sweet rice. All is well until then. But then the hole, while it was good enough for its arm to pass through, was not big enough for its fistful of the fist to come back. It's so small, it was not big enough for the monkey to extricate itself. With the fistful of rice, the hole was not big enough. Now the monkey is trapped. The fist, unless it releases the sweet rice, and then it can extricate itself. But it's a monkey, and it's a hungry monkey. It cannot let go of the sweet rice. Its fist is full. Stomach is growling. And it's so very hungry. It's desperate to eat, but it is trapped. Cannot let go of the rice. Cannot extricate itself. Freedom is gone. At the same time, hunger is not met, and it is trapped there. This is the famous monkey trap. All of us have our own monkey traps. As long as the mind is like a monkey, one will only choose Preyas over Shreyas. As we celebrate Hanuman Jayanti, we need to tell ourselves, only when the monkey-like mind transforms into Hanuman-like mind, only then we can choose Shreyas over Preyas. Choosing Shreyas over Preyas is leading on the path of goodness, leading to eternal happiness, long-term gain. When we talk about happiness, we also need to realize that embedded in nature is the reverse effect principle at work all the time, whether we realize it or not. There is this reverse effect principle at work all the time. What is this reverse effect principle? The more we pursue happiness, the more we receive unhappiness. This is the reverse effect principle. The more we chase happiness, the more unhappiness we get. And we all experience this. And how do we easily understand this? We understand this by looking at a fish which goes after the bait and gets caught. a mouse goes after a piece of cheese and gets trapped in a mouse trap. We all have our baits, our mouse traps, our monkey traps everywhere, all around. Yehi samparshajā bhogāha dukkhayonaye evate adi antamantah kaunteya naramate buddhāha. Krishna beautifully says, adi antavantah kaunteya. Hey Arjuna, the reason why we end up in misery is because we constantly chase for happiness, and we find that whatever we chase has an ending and has a beginning and a fixed ending. And therefore, when we chase happiness outside, it always comes with an expiry date. And sooner than we realize, the expiry date comes, and what we thought could potentially be happiness turns out to be misery. Dukkha yonaya evate, yehi samparshajā bhogāha. Because when we chase happiness, when we seek happiness, we are actually seeking it outside, in the outside world. And we think it is the outcome of the contact of our senses with the sense objects. Our pursuit of happiness is all about experiencing something which comes out of the contact of our senses with sense objects. Now, unfortunately, everything that the outcome of the contact of the senses with sense objects has a beginning and a very quick end, not just an end, a very quick end, because it's transient, fleeting. Before we realize it's gone, that nice experience is gone, and we are in sorrow, because the moment the nice experience goes, we are longing for it. So even before we could fully experience something nice, it's gone. Adi antavantah kaunteya nateshu ramate buddhāha. Therefore, the one who is wise will not go after happiness in the outside world. So Krishna, that's why he says, yogo bhavati dukkhaha. The only way to experience real happiness is through yoga, which is connection. Yoga is when the Jivatma connects with the Paramatma. When the Jivatma unites with the Paramatma, that is when one experiences happiness. And until this connection happens, this union happens, this alignment happens, one cannot experience. Yogo bhavati dukkhaha. Dukkhaha. The end to all dukkha can only come when this alignment happens, when one gets connected and stays connected with Krishna. When we stay connected, that's when we experience the real happiness of who we are and whose we are. And therefore, Krishna says, hey Arjuna, having now understood that one needs to perform actions which are sattvika in nature all the time, one now need to understand that the reason why one needs to perform sattvika actions is because only then one can experience sattvika sukha. Unless jnana is sattvika, unless karma is sattvika, unless karta is sattvika, unless buddhi is sattvika, unless dhriti is sattvika, there cannot be sattvika sukha. So therefore, there is no point in chasing happiness if we don't fix these ingredients of our actions. We need to examine our own action, examine every component of the action and see whether we have all the right ingredients in place. If we have all the right ingredients in place, we don't need to chase happiness. We will experience happiness naturally, which is natural to us. Sukham pidanim trividham. Shrudu me Bharatarshava. Hey Bharatarshava, happiness is your birthright. Shrudu, please listen. Idam Tvidanim Trividham. Trividham. The sukha is threefold in nature. We think happiness is happiness. Not really. Happiness is also threefold in nature, Krishna says. It can be sattvika, it can be rajasika, it can be tamasika. Abhyasad ramate yatra dukkhantam cha nigacchati. Abhyasad ramate yatra. Yatra abhyasad ramate. In that sukha, in which sukha one delights in a state of joy through constant practice. That sukha is sattvika sukha. Hey Arjuna, that sukha in which one delights in a state of joy, in a state of lasting joy through diligent long-term practice. Abhyasat ramate yatra. Now, this can be understood in two ways. That sukha, in which is essentially when one delights in a state of joy through practice, is sattvika sukha. Krishna also says, abhyasad ramate. Even the abhyasa has to be delightful. Even the very practice, the practice leading to sukha also has to be delightful. Abhyasad ramate. Now, abhyasa therefore becomes so very important. Abhyasa is practice. Even to experience sukha, sattvika sukha, we need practice. Constant, steady practice which will lead to imperfection. If it will lead to perfection, it may be imperfect to begin with, but eventually it will lead to perfection. Now when we are looking for something in the dark with a flashlight, the flashlight has to be focused, should be directed towards where we are looking, the object is. Only then we can find it. Otherwise, we will end up searching for it and we will never find it. Similarly, the light of our consciousness has to be directed in the right direction. Otherwise, we will never find. Krishna is always there, but is our light of consciousness correctly directed? It's like in a dark room, the object is behind us, but our flashlight is always directed in front of us. We will never find that object. So therefore, abhyasa becomes very important. Abhyasa involves repetition. Abhyasa involves purification. Abhyasa also involves revelation. Repetition, purification, and the third part is what is magical, revelation. Because it is in the third part, our role is minimal. We have no role to play. In the first two parts, repetition and purification, we have a role to play. In the third part, only Krishna has a role to play. Repetition is so very important. We need to constantly repeat the practice. Any bhakti practice, it can be any type. We sometimes may take a very intellectual standpoint and say, I will first understand and then I will do. Very intellectual. Like saying, I will first understand the bhajan and then I will sing. By the time you understand the bhajan, let's say the bhajan happens to be in Sanskrit, you need possibly 3 years to study Sanskrit, and even then, understanding will only be superficial. Understanding is important. Yes, understanding can intensify our practice, no doubt, can inspire our practice, no doubt. But practice and understanding are symbiotic. They complement and they help each other. Especially children out here need to understand this. Many of the bhakti practices, it could be singing, worshipping, there are other things, Shavanam, Kirtanam, Nididya, all that we do. It is very tempting to ask this question, let me first understand fully before I start doing. Yes, you can spend your lifetime before you will even start doing it. No, understanding and doing, knowing and doing have to always go together. What will happen is, repeated practice, repetition will kindle attraction to Krishna. That kindling of attraction will happen when we repeat it. Like when we repeatedly sing a bhajan, we may not know the meaning of the bhajan. But guaranteed, the attraction to Krishna will be kindled automatically. And what will happen? When the attraction to Krishna is kindled, understanding also will start to happen over a period of time. So understanding and practice can go together. So repetition, any abhyasa, repetition becomes so very important. Initially, it may not look very attractive. Repetition may look very, very boring, very mundane, but that repetition helps a lot. Even when we are told to do archana, Ashtotra Archana, we may not know the meanings of all the namas that we are chanting, and we may find it very, very, very mundane, very, 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 not very inspiring to begin with. But repetitively doing it, constantly being at it, we will see that at some point, without us even knowing, our attraction for Krishna will start increasing, and we will start to enjoy the process. What started off with not so much of enjoyment will all of a sudden become so very enjoyable. And when this process happens is when purification will start, the next phase, the next component of abhyasa. Purification is a very magical process. It happens without us even knowing. It's very important that we may think we do not have a natural love for Bhagavan. Why? Because a magnet which is rusted, an iron piece which is rusted, will not get attracted to a magnet easily. But it is the nature of the iron piece to get attracted to the magnet. It is its nature. But if there are layers of rust on it, yes, it will not get attracted to the magnet. But as the layers are removed slowly, steadily, the magnet will slowly start getting attracting. And then, initially possibly, there is a push required. There is a push required for this rusted iron piece to go towards the magnet. But once it enters the magnetic field, the magnet will take care. This process of purification, of removal, so very important in the process of abhyasa. Now, then we come to the third stage, which is even more magical, where our role completely goes, the process of revelation. At some point, Krishna starts to reveal himself to us. He starts to reveal his all attractiveness, his sweetness that is never ending. Now, all of a sudden, our experience starts to get richer and richer and richer. Why? Because he starts to reveal himself to us. And when that revelation starts, there is no stopping. Then he is taken over. Then that abhyasa there is no longer just our effort. Now, all of a sudden, we are in a cruise mode. Abhyasat ramate. The ramate, the delight now really becomes, the abhyasa itself becomes delightful. That is why Krishna says, Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, Pavitram, Idam Uttamam, Pratyakshavagavam, Dharmam, Susukham Kartum Avyayam. He says Susukham. No, Bhakti is by itself Susukha. Extremely blissful. Why? Because repetition leading to purification, leading to revelation. And this is where Abhyasa Dramate Yatra Dukkhantam Cha Nigacchati. This continued Abhyasa leading to a state of Sattvika Sukha, which is nothing but Dukkhantam, Anta, end to all Dukkha, all the miseries of the world. All the ills of samsara come to an end. Dukkhantam cha nigacchati, he says. Yattadre vishamiva pariname amrutopamam tatsukam sattvikam proktam atma buddhi prasadajam. He further qualifies and explains sattvika sukha to be understood properly. Because many times we equate what is painful with what is harmful. Normally, this is in our day-to-day life, we equate what is painful, what can hurt us, as something which is harmful, something damaging. There is a correlation, no doubt. What gives us pain, what hurts us, definitely has a correlation to what can potentially damage, what can potentially harm. Like if we take our hand close to a fire, yes, it can hurt, and that's a good warning signal, so that we don't damage ourselves, harm ourselves. But what is painful and what is really harmful and damaging need not go all the time together. What is painful need not be harmful all the time. This is very important to know. What is painful need not be harmful all the time. And what is harmful may be painful sometimes. What is harmful may not be painful sometimes. Now, simple example, what is harmful, what is dangerous, what is injurious need not be painful. You know the examples, smoking, drinking. They're all harmful, injurious, damaging, but are not painful. So, one can easily indulge. On the other hand, what sometimes is painful need not be harmful, damaging. If I exercise, if I do brisk walk, yes, I can experience a little bit of a muscle pain, but that is not going to be damaging, that's not going to be harmful. For a woman, the labor pains, it's painful, but it's not harmful. On the other hand, it paves the way for a beautiful life to come into this world. So, Sattvika Sukha may seem like poison at the beginning. Yattadatre vishamiva pariname amrutopamam. See the way Krishna explains Sattvika Sukha beautifully. In the beginning, hey Arjuna, it may seem like poison. It may seem like poison. But eventually, pariname amrutopamam. Eventually, it is going to be like nectar. It is nectarine. That which is enduring in nature, everlasting. There is a requirement to sacrifice short-term want in order to gain long-term. Now, if we need to receive anything, the rule, the law of life is only when we give, we receive. This is the law. Only when we give, we receive anything. And giving has to precede receiving. It is not that we think receiving has to precede giving. We always want first to receive before I give. I have to secure, because we are always worried. If I have to, when I receive something, I'm very comfortable giving it. Until I receive, I'm very, I have a lot of discomfort. But the law of life is give before receiving. Keep giving, receiving will happen. Now, extend this to receive something higher, of higher value. We have to give up something of lower value. This is the law of life. Anything of higher value, if we have to receive, by law, we have to give up something of lower value. If we have to receive higher happiness, we have to first give up our conception. First is to give up our conception of what is happiness. Because our conception of happiness is all about lower pleasures. The pleasures are higher and lower. Lower pleasures are where our awareness is fixated at the level of the body. Bodily gratification, self-centered pleasures, where only our lower side, our physical side is focused. Whereas higher pleasures, which is true happiness, is where our consciousness expands and elevates, where the focus is not on the body. And therefore, in order to receive this happiness, we need to give up these lower pleasures. That is why Krishna says, Yattadagre vishamiva pariname amrutopamam. He says, pariname amrutopamam. Tatsukam satvikam proktam atma buddhi prasadajam. Atma buddhi prasadajam. Now, this is what is Sattvika Sukha is all about. Sattvika Sukha is experiencing our own nature. Devarajanji talked about Gulab Jamun. I thought he will talk about Laddu, but anyway, Gulab Jamun or Laddu. Any sweet, when we consume that sweet, we think it is that sweet that made us happy. We think it is the sweet that has made us happy. When Devarajanji had the Gulab Jamun, he was so happy. And when I said, you must have 3 Gulab Jamuns, he was extremely happy. He was thinking, maybe I will restrict. I said 3 Jamuns. But his happiness was not because of 3 Gulab Jamuns. His happiness was because his disturbed mind became calm. Until he had the 3 Gulab Jamuns, his mind was disturbed. Going all over from Dubai to Calcutta and back. But the moment he had the Gulab Jamuns, the mind became calm. When the mind becomes calm, then we can experience our own true nature. Atma buddhi prasadajam. That is happiness. Experiencing our own true self. Experiencing our own true nature. That happens only when the mind becomes calm, tranquility of the mind. Prasada here is tranquility. When the mind is tranquil, when there are no agitations in the mind, then we are able to experience our own nature. Not only our own nature, and experience who we are, and more importantly, whose we are. That is where the extra sweetness comes in. The sweetness of Krishna can be experienced in that state of tranquility. Atma buddhi prasadajam. That sukham satvikam proktam. Hey Arjuna, that is that sukha with the sattvika nature where we are enjoying true happiness. True happiness which is enduring, which is everlasting, which brings all the miseries to an end. Because in that state of tranquility, in that state of experiencing ourselves and experiencing our relationship with Krishna, in the state of staying connected with Him, there is no scope for worldly miseries to torment us anymore. This is what happens is like we are flying. Until then, we are there on the ground and we are subject to all the disturbances around. Everything happening around will disturb us. Imagine we are actually flying up above in the sky. Whatever is happening on the ground it's still happening. There is a fight going on, somebody is shouting, somebody is crying, all kinds of things. As long as we are there on the ground, we are tormented with what's going on. The moment we are flying high in the sky, it's still happening. We are still in the world, but we are in the world where we are apart, away from the world, enjoying happiness, sukha. That's sukha. So therefore, what is important here, the message is to know that when we are thirsty, we must not consume poison. Today, when we are thirsty, we consume poison. You may ask, why am I saying this? We all know that when we are thirsty, we drink water. How do we know that? We know that because as we grew up, whenever we are thirsty, our mother used to give us water. So as a child, the child knows, I'm thirsty. To quench my thirst, I need to drink water. And I need to drink not some muddy water, drinkable water. The mother teaches the child by constantly drinking water. Similarly, when we are thirsty for happiness, we must know the right water to drink. The water that flows from the divine lotus feet of Krishna. How do we know that? The Shastras, which are like our mother, teaches us how to quench our thirst for happiness. So therefore, quenching our thirst for happiness in the right way by staying connected with Him and in that process experiencing our own true nature is Sattvika Sukha. And that Sattvika Sukha brings to an end all miseries of the world. No wonder Krishna cautions Arjuna, hey Arjuna, unless you are careful, you will end up experiencing Rajasic and Tamasic Sukha, and this process is like a cycle, because the moment we choose Preyas over Shreyas, it's not a one-time choice. We need to remember this very carefully. Now, I started off saying Preyas and Shreyas and choosing one over the other. We may think it's okay if we end up choosing Preyas sometimes over Shreyas. But the problem with that is that sometimes choosing Preyas over Shreyas is a self-inducing behavior. It's the one time becomes 2 times, the 2 times becomes 20 times. It's like, when we ride on a tiger to its den, we become its lunch. Now, when we ride a tiger of selfish desires, we not only become its lunch once. Unfortunately, with the real tiger, we become its lunch only once. But with the tiger-like desires, which devours us not once, we stay in that cycle. We become its lunch once, we once again ride it. We become its lunch, once again ride it. It goes on and on and on. Very difficult to come out. So, therefore, choice making becomes extremely critical. It all goes back to step 1. What do I choose? Shreyas or Preyas? We will continue to contemplate on this, and we will discuss the other 2 types of Sukha in the coming sessions. Sarvam Sri Krishna Arpanamastu.